Chair Stone, we are live.
All right, thank you. So I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the hearing. This meeting is being held electronically in accordance with Section 238 of the Municipal Act 2001. The procedures for the meeting are per the town's procedural bylaw and the electronic meeting protocol during emergencies. And I confirm that everyone's here. We do have quorum. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robinson-Huron Treaty number 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred places, and take actions toward real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations. All right. Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment agenda dated August 11, 2021 be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, thank you. Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald, be it resolved that the Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes dated July 14, 2021, and the recommendations contained therein be hereby adopted as printed and circulated. All in favor? And that's carried. All right. I'd like to welcome everyone to the public meetings to consider applications for minor variances to the zoning bylaw. The input received by agencies, public, and staff is important in order for the committee to make sound planning decisions. The procedure to be followed in these meetings will be as follows. A brief explanation of the application and any correspondence received to date will be given by staff. The applicant or the representative will be asked to provide any additional comments without repeating the information already outlined by staff. Any members of the public present will then be permitted to ask questions or provide comments respecting the applications. Any persons making representation are requested to first state their name and mailing address. And please note that presentations are limited to 10 minutes. Once the hearing is concluded, the input received will be considered by the committee prior to making a decision on the applications. And if you wish to be notified of a decision of the committee, you must file a written request for notification. All right, ready to get going. Kelsey's going to speak to, oh no, before I do that, I just want to say that one item was circulated and yet deferred. It's not being held today, and that's A20-2021 HTE, the Wallet application at 8 Turnbull Lane. That has been deferred. And now I will ask Kelsey to come and speak to the Mueller application at 100 Otter Lake Road.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I'll just set up my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Great. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 100 Otter Lake Cottage Road. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned Shoreline Residential 1 and Rural 2. The application has been submitted to permit a 421.41 square meter single detached dwelling with an attached deck and sunroom to replace an existing non-compliant dwelling. A minor variance is required to decrease the front yard setback from 20 meters to 19.2 meters for the single detached dwelling, and to decrease the front yard setback from 20 meters to 17.5 meters for the attached deck. The proposal is in keeping with the design elements of the existing dwelling and the existing building line and reflects the surrounding character. The private cabin currently does not comply with the northern side yard setback, but shall be moved to comply to ensure appropriate siting. Additionally, the privy will be removed to keep the number of roofed and or enclosed accessory structures to 3, which is in conformity with the zoning bylaw. Looking at the natural constraints, the property is on a warm water lake with unevaluated fish habitat along the shoreline. Development other than permitted shoreline structures should be set back a minimum of 20 meters from warm water lakes. The official plan allows for a lesser setback provided no negative environmental or visual impacts are anticipated. Therefore, a fisheries assessment was completed by Mikulski Nielsen Associates Limited. The report provided background on the Otter Lake fishery and the site conditions. Based on their observation, the report's author characterized the shoreline's abutting fish habitat as type 2. The report concludes the project has a low likelihood of negatively impacting the habitat on or adjacent to the subject property. Recommendations including the implementation of construction mitigation measures to minimize further disturbance to the riparian area, and to maintain the existing trees within 20 meters of the lake, and to naturalize the lands adjacent to the stairway and the beach area will be implemented through a site plan agreement should the minor variance be approved. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and to the Otter Lake Association. 6 letters of support were received and attached to the report package. The application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or the representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have 1 hand raised, so I will bring them into the meeting now. Please note that during the transition, your video panel may be momentarily interrupted. Once you've been added to the meeting, your video will appear in the committee member panel. Please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and please do confirm your full name and mailing address.
Mr. Dennis?
Morning, Chair Stone, committee. Lanny Dennis, Wayne Simpson and Associates, 3-76 King William Street, Huntsville, Ontario. I think that's a fair and accurate assessment as presented by the town planners. Appreciate working with and the efforts of staff and their assistants bringing the application forward expeditiously. I concur with them to approve the application, as I believe as they do that it meets the 4 tests of the minor variance. Just quickly to go through the merits of the proposal. The new cottage and deck will be further from the shoreline than the existing non-complying setback of 39 feet. In fact, the closest point of the deck is an additional 20 feet away from that point, and the cottage is almost completely located behind the 66-foot setback. There's only a small portion that isn't. There's an irregular shoreline for sure on the property, so trying to construct a cottage front wall completely parallel makes it extremely difficult to do so. And there's a bit of rocky behind, which sort of forces the building a bit forward. New septic system is proposed in about 200 feet or so from the shoreline. As you know, the maximum lot coverage is 10%. And the proposal is at 3%, so it's certainly not overbuilt. In terms of the accessory structures, The maximum lot coverage is 5%, and this comes in at 1%. So again, not overbuilt. The new build is going to be done in an area where the existing building is located, so an area that already is disturbed. So that'll help minimize the disturbance to the property and actually sort of push it back a bit from the edge of the slope. There was a fish habitat assessment that was completed, identified as being type 2, and concludes that there's a low likelihood of any impact on that natural heritage feature. All that to say is, I think with these measures that the visual and environmental impact will be minimized on the property. In fact, probably bettered. As noted, there were 6 letters of support from the neighborhood. Additionally, the privy will be removed. The cabin will be brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw, and the build will be pushed further back than the existing setback, all to the view of making the proposal more in compliance with the zoning bylaw. So on those notes, I respectfully request committee approve the application. I know the owners are anxious to proceed to construction with the new cottage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that wishes to speak to the application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Members of committee, any comments or questions? All right, I will read the motion. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A27-2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 5.3.4 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to decrease the front yard setback from 20 meters to 19.2 meters for a single detached dwelling, and decrease the front yard setback from 20 meters to 17.5 meters for an attached deck. Conditional on the private cabin being brought into conformity with the provisions of the zoning bylaw, the removal of the privy, and the shoreline buffer being maintained and revegetated to the satisfaction of the town to be implemented through site plan control. Any other comments? All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you for your time to staff and committee. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, Kelsey, you're going to speak to the Timber on Clear Lake Road, Timber application.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Everyone can see?
Yes.
Great. Perfect. Well, thank you again, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 1213 Clearwater Lake Road. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned shoreline residential 5. The application has been submitted to permit a 108.7 square meter addition to an existing non-complying single detached dwelling. The minor variance is required to recognize the existing 15 meter front yard setback and 4 meter southern interior side yard setback. The additional relief is required to also reduce those setbacks for the addition and increase the primary lot coverage from 5% to 7.3% and recognize a 13.9 meter amenity area width along the shoreline frontage. The waterfront area anticipates linear, low-density shoreline residential development that respects the character of the natural setting. In this instance, the proposed dwelling is in keeping with the design elements of the dwelling, established building line, and reflects the surrounding character. Additionally, with the increased primary lot coverage, staff are also recommending the number of roofed and/or enclosed accessory buildings be reduced to 3 to comply, and then the accessory lot coverage be reduced to 1.67 within 30 meters of the shoreline, with the exception of a future dock, to maintain the overall lot coverage to be more in keeping with intent of the zoning bylaw. In terms of natural constraints, the property is on a warm water lake with unevaluated fish habitat along the shoreline. Development other than permitted shoreline structures should be set back 20 meters from a warm water lake. The official plan allows for a reduced setback to reduce the setback from 20 meters if there's no negative or visual impacts. And in this instance, a fish habitat assessment was completed by Riverstone Environmental Solutions. The report provides background on the fish habitat in the vicinity of the property, Clearwater Lake fishery, and the site conditions. The report concludes the project could be completed in a way that would acceptably minimize impacts to fish habitat. Recommendations include implementation of construction mitigation measures to minimize the disturbance of the riparian area, maintenance of the existing vegetation, and restoration of the shoreline buffer, which will be implemented through site plan agreement should a minor variance be approved. The application was circulated in accordance to the Planning Act. A letter of support was received and forwarded to committee prior to today's meeting. The application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plan and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have one hand raised, so I will bring them into the meeting now. As a reminder, please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and please do confirm your full name and mailing address.
I'm wondering if you guys can hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
Okay. My connection is not the best. My video is on.
All right. You're coming in loud and clear, so go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Hi. My name is Tamara Tambray. I am the granddaughter of the original, my grandparents bought this property, so it's a very special property within our family. Hello to the staff and the committee. And especially thanks to Kelsey for her support in helping with this process. It's been rather daunting as just an applicant, not a contractor. However, I've taken on this role for my family. So I don't have anything to add to what Kelsey said, but there was one thing that she had mentioned that the committee can't support, or the minor variance process can't support, which is the sheds on the property. We have currently 6 roofed structures. And on the site plan, I've indicated 3 are to be removed. So I don't know if it's possible. I don't know how to show this, but this is my site plan.
Yes, we've just seen that on our screen, actually. Yep.
Okay, so what I'm hoping for is to, like, definitely one shed will be removed 100%. But there's 2 that my father built many years ago, that one is in the shoreline buffer, and I'm wondering if I can keep it but move it out of the shoreline buffer. And then the other one I could still remove. It's not as important, but the one by currently the pump house. And we won't need the pump house anymore because the pump will go up into the cottage structure. But because my dad built it many years ago, I would love to be able to keep it within our family, but move it out of the shoreline buffer and further back into the property. And that would only increase the percentage of lot coverage of accessory structures to 1.1% from 0.09%. So it's still really low in the 5% allowable. So I'm just wondering if I could at least keep that one. I would love to keep both of those, but if not, that's okay too. But again, one is going down for sure. And I feel like I'm talking all over the place and I apologize.
All right, thanks very much. I will ask if there's any member of the public that wishes to speak to this application.
Members of the public are reminded to use the raise hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
All right, thanks very much. Members of the committee, do you have any comments or questions? Mr. Donald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. Through you, I guess to Kelsey, the applicant's request to retain the one shed. How many buildings does that then leave us on the site?
Yes, I'm happy to clarify. So currently the accessory, what is being proposed is actually 1.67%, and that's including the shed that's 48.3 square feet, the privy, which is 17.3 square feet, and the sauna, which is 166.56 square feet, and the deck, which is 290 square feet. So the shed that's are being removed, so shed 6 on the site plan, that was discussed as being removed. So I think Tamara's okay with that one. And then the pump house is 51.56, and I think Tamara also suggested she was fine with removing that and putting that in the cottage. So the one that is, I guess, being debated is the shed 1 on the site plan, which is 98.22 square feet. So that's the one that's being contemplated. I hope that adds some.
Tamara, you're shaking your head. Can you just clarify
Sorry.
something?
Just a little reverse there on the last two. It's actually the pump house that is 51.56 square feet that I was hoping to keep and move back out of the shoreline buffer. And still okay to remove shed number 1, which is 48.3. Yeah, that one, because that one was is not important to my family. The pump house was built by my father many years ago.
All right, thanks very much. Tamara, can you mute yourself and take your video down, please? Mr. Donald?
Sorry, I'm feeling particularly dense this morning, Chair Stone. So for example, it would suggest that we're moving shed number 4, possibly to replace shed number 1.
Am I?
Is that?
Just to clarify, if I may, Chair Stone, yes, I think it's being switched. So I was of the understanding that the shed that was 48.3 square feet was to be retained. And I believe that the applicant wants the shed that's 98.22 square feet to be retained. So that would mean a different lot coverage would have to be calculated.
So again, just for my clarification, so how many
How many total?
Structures will remain or are requested to remain versus how many structures would typically be permitted?
So within our zoning bylaw, only 3 roofed or enclosed structures are permitted, and staff were requesting that only 3 were to remain. However, I believe that Tamara said she was okay with removing the 48.3 square foot shed. So maybe we can, if she could clarify that and which one she wants to remain, then maybe she'd be still okay with removing the 2.
Well, hang on a sec. We haven't decided anything yet. So,
Oh, sorry, getting ahead of myself.
yeah, personally, we're way over the primary lot coverage. So I personally am not in favor of adding other structures now.
So it's not adding a structure, it's just keeping 1. So 3 are permitted. I'm asking for 4, and 2 would be removed. Sorry.
Thank you. Can you take your video down, please? Ms. Renwick.
Could through you, Chair Stone, could Kelsey bring up the map again, just to take a quick look at it?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Are you able to see that?
No,
No, okay.
there it is. Yep.
There it goes.
So Kelsey, right now, 1 and 6 are to be removed. Is that correct? And 4.
Yes, that is correct. So currently in the lot coverage calculation that I have, it would be shed 2, the privy, the outhouse, the sauna, and the deck. So the deck is not an enclosed roof structure, but that's what's included in the accessory lot coverage. And I believe she's asking for the pump house to be retained.
Okay, thanks very much. Can you take that down? Director Maxwell would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I just wanted to clarify, because I think maybe we're confusing things a little bit. The way the recommendation is structured is that the accessory lot coverage along the shoreline area only is what's being limited, and that there could be additional accessory lot coverage behind the 30 meters. However, there are still only 3 roof structures permitted in total, regardless of where they're located on the property. So I don't know if that helps clarify anything or not, but.
All right, committee members, any other comments or questions before I call the question? All right. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that minor variance application A29, 2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.6, 3.1.18.5, 5.3.4, 5.3.4, 6 and 5.3.47 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008 66P in order to reduce the 15-meter front yard setback from 4 meters, southern interior side yard setback for existing dwelling, reduce the front yard setback from 30 meters to 15 meters for the proposed addition, reduce the southern interior side yard setback from 6 meters to 4 meters for the proposed addition, increase the primary lot coverage from 5% to 7.3%, recognize a 13.9 meter amenity area with along the shoreline frontage, conditional on the owner removing the 3 roofed or enclosed accessory buildings, the owner reducing accessory lot coverage from 5% to 1.67% within the 30 meters of the shoreline, save and except for a dock, the owner revegetating the shoreline buffer to the satisfaction of the town of Huntsville, and all of the recommendations contained within the Fish Habitat Assessment Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated January 7, 2021, be implemented through site plan control. Any comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. Adam is going to speak to the next application, the night application at 29 King Street.
Good morning, committee.
Good morning.
Pull up my screen here. Is everyone able to see that all right?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Chair Stone. Through you, the subject property is located at 29 King Street. The lot is designated residential and is zoned residential 2. The variance portion of this application is proposing to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 10 meters to 8 meters and 7.5 meters on both the retained and severed lots respectively. So as you can see on the sketch here, I've imposed the proposed lot line. The retained lot, which is on the right, is already developed with a single detached dwelling. As you can see here, that 8-meter setback is to the existing deck on the back of the building. And the newly created lot that's proposed by the consent application, the applicant has suggested a proposed building envelope where you can see here at the north, they're requesting a 7.5-meter rear yard setback. So those are the two variances we're talking about today. As mentioned, there's also an associated consent application, and the purpose of which is to create a new residential lot. Both the severed and retained are, sorry, my apologies. The severed lot would have approximately 661 meters, square meters in area, and would have 25 meters of frontage on West Street, and the retained lands would have an area of approximately 859 meters squared and 25 meters of frontage on King Street. The town's official plan states that residential intensification will generally be encouraged throughout the built-up areas where existing infrastructure and services are available. In this regard, staff are of the opinion that the proposed development is appropriate. Further, with respect to the town zoning bylaw, the proposed severed and retained lots meet the provisions of the R2 zone with the exception of the aforementioned rear yard setbacks. The purpose of these provisions is to ensure that there's adequate space for maintenance, drainage, as well as sufficient amenity area on both the properties. Given the proposed building envelopes, staff are satisfied that both lots will be generally in keeping with the intent of the rear yard setback provisions. The application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. One letter of support was received from a neighboring property owner after the report was finalized and was forwarded for committee's information. Staff, it would appear that the applications conform both to the intent of the official plan are consistent with the provincial policy statement. Further, with respect to the variance application, staff are satisfied that it does meet the 4 tests as set out in the Planning Act. As such, staff are recommending approval for both applications. And I would happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have one hand raised, so I will bring them into the meeting now. As a reminder, please have your microphone and video, if possible, turned on before you begin speaking, and please do confirm your name and mailing address.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks. I didn't see me there on all those faces. John P. Gallagher and Associates, 24 Hibbard Road, Huntsville, P1H, 1C9. And I'm here representing Andrew and Deb Knight, the owners of the property. I think Andrew has summarized the application well. I'd just like to go into a few points that support the application. The lot is located in the urban settlement area of Huntsville, and it is designated residential. The area is predominantly single-family dwellings. There are some multiple units on the streets around this area. The location supports walking, giving its location to the downtown core. The proposed dwelling will also support climate change as it will be built to the current Ontario Building Code. The proposed lot is consistent with other development in the area. There have been other lots along this stretch of street that take advantage of both the ends of King Street and West Street North. Both lots front on a year-round municipally maintained road. The division of an oversized single-family lot minimizes land consumption in the urban area. and it takes advantage of existing infrastructure. And as Adam had mentioned, the lots are zoned R2, and both the severed and retained lots will be in excess of the R1 zoning requirements. We have greater frontage and greater area than the R2 zone. Both lots would be serviced by municipal water and sewer. The proposal to utilize an oversized single-family lot in the urban area is an appropriate use of land. It makes sense to allow the reduction in the rear yard, and right now the garage that will be removed is about 3 meters from the road. And so this will provide additional setback from the street in that location. Right now, the driveway sort of encroaches on the allowance there. So this will allow the cars to get off the road even better. In terms of minor in nature, in both terms of the amount of the variance being requested and its impact on the surrounding uses, we feel that it's a minimal impact. As Adam showed, the addition on the existing dwelling juts out a small portion, and that's where we've tried to balance out the rear yard setback. When that house was originally built back in the day, it was well in excess of the setback along King, considering there was no zoning at the time, but they did push it far back from the road. There are no other variants requested that would impact side yards from the adjacent neighbors. As Adam had stated, it conforms with all the other zone provisions, and they are larger lots. It's my professional opinion that the application meets the 4 tests of the minor variance. The severance makes sense, and this will allow the owners to provide a small home on their existing lot. And I'd be glad to answer any questions should you have any. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Are there any members of the public that wishes to speak to the application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thanks very much. Committee members, any comments or questions? All right, we've got 2 resolutions for this. So moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that committee approve minor variance A 24-2021 HTE to provide relief from subsection 5.2.4 to reduce the required minimum rear yard setback for the lot to be retained from 10 meters to 8 meters and from 10 meters to 7.5 meters for the lot to be severed, to permit the creation of 1 new residential lot. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. Be it resolved that committee approve consent application B 34-2021 HTE for the creation of 1 new residential lot, conditional on the registerable description of the severed lot being submitted to the Secretary Treasurer, including all rights of ways and easements, along with a registered copy of the reference plan. The owner's taxes being in good standing, site inspection fee of $235 being paid to the town of Huntsville, a consent finalization fee in the amount of $180 being paid to the town of Huntsville, 5% cash in lieu of parkland being paid to the town of Huntsville on the severed lands, and minor variance A 24-21 HTE being approved and in effect. All in favor? And that's carried.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, John. All right, I believe Kelsey's coming back for Daga, the 275 Mica Mine.
Thank you. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 275 Mica Mine Road. The lot is designated waterfront and is zoned Shoreline Residential 1. The application has been submitted to permit the construction of a 35.7 square meter flat roofed boathouse to replace a 23.4 square meter existing boathouse. A minor variance is required to reduce the setback to type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 0 for the roofed boathouse, reduce the northern interior side yard setback from 12 meters to 3.97 meters for the flat roofed boathouse, increase the accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.46%, and increase the number of accessory enclosed and or roofed accessory buildings from 3 to 4 to recognize existing conditions, and to recognize the 13.5 amenity area width along the shoreline frontage, and recognize the location of an 18.8 square meter utility shed within 30 meters of type 1 fish habitat. The proposed boathouse reflects the scale of boathouses in the surrounding waterfront area and improves the visual impacts by rebuilding a collapsing boathouse. The requested reliefs also address the existing non-compliant conditions of the site and create no additional impacts. Additionally, with the increase in accessory lot coverage, staff are asking that primary lot coverage be reduced to 7.04% to maintain an overall lot coverage, which is more in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw. Natural constraint mapping identifies steep slope areas on the property, as well as the lot being on a cold water lake with type 1 fish habitat abutting the shoreline. As the proposed boathouse is sited away from the steep slope areas, there's no concern respecting those constraints. To address the type 1 fish habitat, a fish habitat assessment was completed by Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc. The report provides background on type 1 fish habitat, the Fairy Lake fishery, and site conditions. The report concludes that the project has a low likelihood of negatively impacting the fish habitat on or adjacent to the subject property, and provides mitigation measures to be followed. Recommendations including the implementation of construction mitigation measures to minimize further disturbance to the riparian area, maintenance and enhancement of the shoreline buffer area through revegetation and retention of existing tree cover, which will be implemented through site plan control should the minor variance be approved. The application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act and to the Fairy Lake Association. A letter of support was received and was attached to the report package. The Fairy Lake Association provided comments and stated they would be supportive of the redevelopment of the boathouse, provided the mitigation measures of the fish habitat assessment are implemented. However, they did question all the accessory buildings on the property. Staff believes that this is a good comment and believes the request to reduce the primary lot coverage helps to balance the needed reliefs. The application would appear to conform to the intent of the official plans and be consistent with the provincial policy statement. Additionally, the application appears to satisfy the 4 tests of a minor variance, and therefore staff are recommending approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have one hand raised, so I will bring them into the meeting now. A reminder, please have your microphone and video if possible turned on before you begin speaking, and please do confirm your full name and mailing address.
Hi there. Sorry about that.
Hi.
Actually, someone here. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, committee, for the consideration of this application. Thank you, Kelsey and Richard, for everything that you've done to get us to this point. Just 2 points I want to bring up very quickly. One is that I don't know if those pictures that Kelsey shared with you actually show the state of the boathouse. The boathouse is in complete disrepair. It's unable to be used. In fact, it's slid off its cribs and is partially in the lake. So it does need to be, in some form or another, it needs to be attended to. And then secondly, as the number of accessory buildings is in question, which I understand, but I just want to point out that the pump house is kind of overbuilt as a pump house. It's a 2.3 meter building or box with a roof that only contains a water container. For the pump is actually in the lake, and that's where the water container is. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Other than thanks.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
If you can just go down, and I will ask, is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this application?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
Thanks very much. Committee members, comments or questions? Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair Stone. I just wanted to thank Kelsey for her thorough report. I really appreciate all the pictures and all the information that's given. So great job. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Renwick.
Just to through you, Chair Stone, to Kelsey, when you say recognize existing conditions, is that just in referral to what's existing on the property presently?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it's okay. And it's nothing that, okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right, if I can follow up on that. So the Ferry Lake Association mentioned that the accessory buildings were built without the issuing of a permit. Is that true? And do they need to get inspected so they're safe?
Often we have sheds that are built on our lakes that are 10 by 10, which don't require a building permit. So sometimes they don't necessarily conform to though they do have to conform to the building, the zoning setbacks. So often sheds don't have a building permit. So that's just to recognize those existing conditions and what's there.
All right, thanks very much. Any other comments or questions? Moved by Helena Renwick, seconded by Jason Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A30 2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 3.1.6, 3.1.18.5, 3.1.18.9, 3.1.18.15, 3.5.3.4, 5.3.4, of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008 66P in order to reduce the setback from type 1 fish habitat from 30 meters to 0 meters for a flat roof boathouse, reduce the northern interior side yard setback from 12 meters to 3.97 meters for a flat roof boathouse, increase the accessory lot coverage from 5.5 to 5.46%, increase the number of enclosed roof accessory buildings from 3 to 4 to recognize existing conditions, recognize a 13.5 meter amenity area width along the shoreline frontage, and recognize the location of an 18.8 meter utility shed within 30 meters of type 1 fish habitat, conditional on the original shore road allowance being stopped up, closed, and sold to the landowner, the primary lot coverage being reduced from 10% to 7.04%, the shoreline buffer being revegetated to the satisfaction of the town, and all of the recommendations contained in the Fish Habitat Assessment, Riverstone Environmental Solutions, Inc., dated June 29, 2021, be implemented through site plan control. Final comments or questions? All in favor? And that's carried. All right. We're going back to Adam now. The McEwen application on St. George's Court.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, the subject property is located at 10 St. George's Court. The lot is designated in the Hidden Valley Recreational Resort Residential and is zoned Residential 1 with exception 0559. This site-specific exception requires a minimum lot area of 650 meters squared, a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters, a maximum height for accessory structures of 5 meters, and a minimum setback for any parking areas from a public highway. The applicant is proposing to construct a 37-meter square detached garage. A variance is required to permit the garage to be located closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling. Currently, the subject lands are developed with a single detached dwelling that's under construction. The general provisions of the town zoning bylaw require that garages are to be located no closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling. The purpose of this provision is to ensure that adequate setbacks, sight lines are maintained, and further, that a street presence and character is consistent. The applicant notes that the narrow lot widths and the existing location of the dwelling that's under construction made siting the garage in a compliant location difficult. Additionally, the minimum front yard setback will be maintained from the road, and further, natural vegetation located on the property will appropriately screen the proposed garage, mitigating potential adverse impacts with respect to visual impacts, traffic impacts, and safety impacts. The application was circulated in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, and no concerns or objections have been raised. Staff are of the opinion that the proposal conforms to the intent of the official plan, is consistent with the provincial policy statement, and satisfies the 4 tests for minor variance. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
No hands. All right, let's go to the public. Anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this?
Members of the public are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address the committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no hands raised.
All right, we're on our own with this one. Comments or questions? Seeing none. Whew. Moved by Jason Fitzgerald, seconded by Kenneth Donald. Be it resolved that minor variance application A 26-2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsection 3.1.15.1 of the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw 2008-66P in order to permit a 37 square meter detached garage to be located closer to the front lot line than the principal dwelling. All in favor? And that's carried. Moving right along. Okay, Adam, the Gotti application on Ravenscliff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located at 4215 Ravenscliff Road. The lot is designated rural and is zoned rural residential. The applicant is proposing to permit the construction of a new detached garage. A minor variance is required to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 5 meters to 4.1 meters and to increase the maximum permitted accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.7%. The applicant is proposing to remodel the existing garage on site and resite it on the subject lands to be used as a utility shed. So as you can see on the site sketch, this dashed line here inside the red box represents the existing garage on site. The proposed garage in question is outlined here in red. Here is the proposed relief and the interior side yard setback noted as well. And this existing garage is to be reduced in size and relocated here on the property. Its location at this point in the property is compliant with the interior and rear yard side yard setbacks for utility sheds. As mentioned, the lands are designated rural within the town of Huntsville official plan. The continued use of the property for a single detached dwelling is in keeping with the policies contained in the town's official plan. The rural residential zone requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 5 meters. And further, the general provisions limit accessory lot coverage to 5%. The purpose of these provisions are to regulate the density of development, limit building massing and imperviousness, and ensure that appropriate area is maintained between neighboring properties. Staff are of the opinion that the intent of the zoning provisions will be met and maintained, and further that the proposal represents a minor deviation from the provisions of the zoning bylaw. The application was circulated in accordance with provisions of the Planning Act. 3 letters of support have been received and were attached to the report for committee's reference in attachment number 4. As you can see here on the site photos, it might be hard to see, but there is an orange stake there. There is another one to the rear, and the applicant had gone out and staked out the approximate location. That's how they determined the relief needed. In view of the foregoing, the application appears to be meet the intent of the official plan, be consistent with the provincial policy statement, and satisfy the 4 tests for a minor variance as set out in the Planning Act. As a result, staff are recommending that the application be approved, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks very much. I'll call on the applicant or representative to make any comments.
The applicant or their representative are reminded to use the raised hand button or press *9 on their telephone to indicate that they would like to address committee. And Chair Stone, I can confirm we do have one hand raised. So we'll move them into the meeting now. A reminder, please have your microphone and video if possible turned on. Before you begin speaking, please confirm your name and full mailing address.
Good morning,
there.
Council, and hope you can hear me.
I can.
My name is Carmen Gowdy, and my address is 4215 Ravenscliff Road, Huntsville, P1H2J2. I have nothing more to add to what has already been said. I certainly appreciate you seeing my application this morning, and I certainly appreciate all the guidance that I've received from the town to help me on this endeavor. But I have nothing to add to the conversation.
Thank you. Actually, I have a question for you while you're here. This is a pretty sizable garage you're building. There is not going to be any habitable space in there, is there?
No, there's not. It's the second story is for storage. My wife and I sold our property in the city, and we retired last fall, and we moved to our cottage. And given that we're built on a crawl space, and we really have no place to store anything, so we're renting a storage facility in Bracebridge currently, and we'd like to have some space on site to store things. So there'll be a stairwell interior of the garage to give us access to storage, but no, there'll be no living spaces there.
That's great. Thank you for that, and welcome full-time to Huntsville.
Yeah, thank you very much.
If you could just take your video down, we're going to go to the public and ask if there's anyone that wishes to make a comment about this application.
Chair Stone, I can confirm there are no additional attendees present, so there are no hands to be raised.
All right. Committee members, comments or questions? All right. Moved by Brandon Stapleton, seconded by Helena Renwick. Be it resolved that minor variance application A28-2021 HTE be approved. The purpose and effect of which is to provide relief from subsections 3.1.6 and 5.2.4 of the comprehensive zoning bylaw in order to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 5 meters to 4.1 meters and increase the maximum permitted accessory lot coverage from 5% to 5.7%, both for a detached garage only. All those in favor? And that's carried. All right. Now that all comments have been received, I declare these public meetings respecting the above applications to be concluded. And I think staff are just adding more and more numbers into these motions just to make me look foolish. Anyways, moved by Kenneth Donald, seconded by Brandon Stapleton. We do now adjourn at exactly 10 a.m. All in favor? That's carried.